Welcome to BPTV. My name is Andy Amrine, and we're here today with our Around Town series. And we're going to be spending the next 6 months or so looking at all the Shim gardens, your food that is produced at all these different gardens around the community that they use in their food pantry. So we're going to start the program here looking at what gardens look like come April 1st. So we're going to take a tour and see how they're just spent the winter and how we get started to produce a garden. So we're going to follow them through the entire year, seeing from the beginning to planting to weeding to watering and then harvesting at the end of it. So I hope you enjoy the series that we're going to be doing this summer, but let's take a look at what it takes to run a garden for Shim. All right, here we are at the very first garden that was part of the Shim gardening program. So why don't you introduce yourself and just tell us about your garden here.
My name is Becky Henninger, and I started here 5 years ago as a volunteer. Myself and two other people were the leads of this garden that it was Jim's baby. He thought we can grow a garden here and grow some produce to serve the people that use our food pantry, and he put up the fence and we came and we turned it into a garden. And it was basically the three of us for the first year trying to get everything up and running, and we planted your basic zucchini, beans, chard, kale, grew 1,500 pounds here at this site, and then the next year we added 3 more community partners, and we've grown each year since then, adding maybe 3 or 4 community partners each year to get to where we are now, which is 13, almost 14 gardens with three additional new ones coming on this spring.
Okay, starting as a volunteer though, now you are actual director of the garden program for Shim?
I am the community gardens manager,
Okay.
and I am paid. I'm a part-time employee, so I work, most of my hours are in the summer. I work about 20 hours a week on average throughout the course of the year, organizing our site here, overseeing that directly, and then coordinating all of our partners' harvest drop-offs and planting and any questions, technical questions that they may have along the way.
You've seen quite a growth, though, in the volunteers for the gardens itself. Having 13 gardens, that's a lot of volunteers. And can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to have all these volunteers? And you have quite an age difference between from preschoolers to retirees that are doing this gardens.
We do. We have so here at our garden we have some retirees. We have some young mothers who take their time during the day when their kids are in school and they come and help. We also have an after-school program at our Whitehall Garden that serves the Prospect Park community, and there are kids from kindergarten to 5th grade that are involved in the garden throughout the school year. But then we also integrate the summer camp program into that garden, doing some education things, harvesting a salad and making a salad to serve with their lunch, just educating them on nature and growing their own food and how it's really easy.
If there was a biggest misconception of people in gardenings, I hear time and time again, oh, gardening is so hard. What can you tell us about your gardening experience and getting these gardens started? And is it that hard?
It is not hard. It's very forgiving, because if something dies, you can put something new in. You can, if you're not having luck with a certain crop and you decide, you can just tear it out and you can put something new in that'll hopefully grow better than your first try.
So a viewer out there watching this, is there any easy advice that you can give them if they're interested in even just starting a garden at home, just a couple plants or something like that? What's the one thing or a couple quick things that they should do on how easy it would be for them to start a garden or to get involved?
Well, to start a garden, if you don't have the land, I would start with container gardens. It's very easy to get some large containers and get your potting soil from the local hardware store, and you can get a couple plants. You can plant tomato plants in containers. You can plant chard. You can plant lettuce. You can plant anything in containers. Start that way, and then if you're feeling confident, move on to planting in the ground.
Okay. How about if someone wants to volunteer at some of your gardens? Is there a way they could get in touch?
We would love that. We typically volunteer or work here at the garden on Tuesday mornings. That coordinates with our food pantry distribution. So during the growing season, we harvest on Tuesdays and get it prepared for food pantry. Our other gardens, they have their own schedule as far as when they work in their gardens, but each garden would be more than happy to have community volunteers. Can get in touch with me here at SHIM, or look on our website, and I believe all of our garden partners are listed there, and reach out directly to those organizations.
Wonderful. Any last thoughts about your garden here? This is very different what we're looking at now, which just looks like a bunch of mud. But this is April 1st, so can you walk us through a process of timeline, what goes on through April, what will happen in May, what will happen in June, what can we look forward to in visualizing this garden over the next 6 months?
Well, we're over in the trailer over there. We have a load of horse manure that we will be spreading on the garden as soon as we get most of the old growth cleaned up. That will help to fertilize the garden. We do everything here organically as possible. So the horse manure will help to build up the healthy soil. And then we will plant probably some early season crops, chard or kale or radishes, things that will tolerate the cold in the event that, we're here in southwestern PA. We will probably have a frost in the middle of May, so we will plant some things that will survive that frost, hopefully. And then late May, we will begin planting our seedlings, which we have donated by, I have two community partners, a man and a woman who start seedlings for us here in Bethel, and then also a nursery in Upper St. Clair that starts seedlings for us as well. And we'll plant them late May, beginning of June, and hope everything will start growing, and we'll do a little rain dance and get some water on the garden, and by midsummer this will be lush and green, and we'll be harvesting our first crops in the early season crops, maybe the beginning of June, middle of June.
And how long will you be able to harvest?
We harvest into mid-October, late October. Sometimes those same crops that are early season crops are late season as well. So we can harvest into November, some of them. We don't get a lot of produce at that point, but we can still harvest some things and get them distributed to the people that need them.
Okay. Well, Becky, thank you for your time today. We're really looking forward to spending the summer with you in your garden.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Here we are at the Hamilton Presbyterian Church, right at the corner of Bethel Park and Whitehall. And they've been part of the SHIM gardening program since 2014. And this garden here, massive garden, produces close to 2,000 pounds of produce per year. So I can't wait to learn about this garden later on in our series, but we'll get a couple shots of it, what it is, how it survived the winter, and how we're getting ready for spring. Garden to the SHIM gardening program this year is going to be Abraham Lincoln Elementary School here in Bethel Park. So it's going to be part of the curriculum for the students. So you have preschool, kindergarten, all the way up through fourth grade. You have about 250 children, I think, that are going to be part of this gardening program, which is also going to be part of their education on it. So speaking of STEMs, it's science, technology, it's everything that they want. in what it takes to grow a garden, plant the garden, plant the seeds, and then enjoy it and eat it and have the food for the Shim Pantry. So very much anxious to see how this garden is going to turn out come fall. All right, we want to thank Peter for turning off his lawnmower here. We're down at St. Joan of Arc, down in Library, and this has been a garden since 2013. This is the largest garden that produces food for Shim itself. St. Joan of Arc here does in excess of 4,000 pounds of produce a year for the Shim Garden programs. Here at St. Joan of Arc's garden, I know they plant different ground covering and flowers here throughout the winter time just to help enrich the soil. So all these, as people might consider weeds, but these are going to be part of the composition going back into the soil when they till all this in and lay the manure on top. The St. Joan of Arc garden even has the plumbing brought in. So with this garden here, join-in season, it's all winterized right now, but that's part of the winter process with it. They have a sprinkler system and a garden watering schedule of all their volunteers to come down and make sure that this garden gets enough water throughout the entire year. So as you can see, this is a larger square footage, and that helps, but they got a great group of volunteers, a large group of volunteers here. Dr. Ron Boron is the director of this community garden, so we'll be visiting with him later on in the season on it. But could see the big garden, but they have a lot of work to do. So shortly, probably in the next couple of weeks, they'll be putting down the manure and tilling everything in to get this garden up and started for another fantastic gardening year here at the St. Joan of Arc Shim Garden. Here we are with Jim Guffey, the director of Shim, and this is the whole reason we're doing this garden program. Here we have a can of cut beans, but with the food pantry itself, we like to get fresh food to the pantry itself. So in doing the gardens, you plant the gardens, you tend the gardens, you harvest the garden, and instead of just having all the canned food for them, which is still essential also, but how nice is it to get the fresh food to the pantry from the gardens? So, food to table is an ideal situation. So Jim, welcome to BPTV, but tell us a little bit about Shim, but in particular the garden program itself. How did it get started?
Great. Well, thanks for being here. We're glad to welcome the folks here. But you're absolutely right. It's not only about feeding people food, it's about feeding them healthy foods. And so the garden project aligned very nicely with our overall mission of helping families attain self-sufficiency, and we start that by meeting basic needs, making sure that folks have food, clothing, utility assistance for in their homes. But the food pantry is what most folks always recognize Shim as. It's what we've done for the longest time throughout our nearly 50-year history. So the garden project ironically actually began as an attempt here at our new location here in Bethel Park. We moved into this facility in 2009, and we started cutting grass, and we did it with volunteers and other folks. But over time, the thought was, is there a different way that we could better utilize what little bit of lawn area we have? And so we put in a grant to a local foundation, and they granted us the opportunity to start the garden. So what you first saw here about 5-6 years ago was a split rail fence in our yard, and folks would come by because we did this in late one summer, and folks would come by and say, where's the horse? Because it was just this split rail fence. And the next spring we got started with purely volunteers, and the idea was what could we grow in this little area as a pilot program to get us started with our fresh fruits and vegetables. And so the first year we had about 30 by 30 little area out in our lawn. And that produced about 1,600 pounds of fresh produce that came in and benefited those recipients here in our food pantry. And then from that point on, the gardens have literally just grown to be something that we quite honestly never imagined, in the fact that this past growing season we had 13 different community gardens throughout the South Hills, many here in Bethel Park, and those 13 gardens produced over 12,000 pounds of fresh produce that came into our food pantries to offer that fresh nutrition to those who are struggling with food insecurities here in Bethel Park, Upper St. Clair, Mount Lebanon, Castle Shannon, but here in Bethel Park.
13 gardens. And how many pounds?
13 gardens, over 12,000 pounds.
12,000 pounds of fresh food.
And
It's amazing. It's an amazing concept. And the little bit I've talked to your gardeners so far, I mean, your gardeners, this is a passion. I mean, this is a passion. They take a lot of pride in their gardens and what they produce, and they're thrilled to death to see the use that it gets.
Our master gardener is wonderful. Becky does a phenomenal job helping to coordinate all of the gardens so that not everybody's growing tomatoes, and then I have 12,000 pounds of just tomatoes. But she started here when we put out the call those years ago for volunteers who would help get our garden started. She was one of those volunteers that just offered her time and talent and expertise, and she is very passionate about what she does here and the benefit that it's giving. It's very rewarding for not only her but all of the volunteers.
Well, Jim, one of the other, in getting to learn a little bit about this program that I find really fascinating, is you have all age groups. You have kindergartners, preschool children, all the way up through retirees and everything in between. So these gardens aren't just like a church garden. I mean, you have churches involved, but you have schools involved, and you just have neighborhoods involved. And it's amazing to see the excitement at the elementary level of the children wanting to learn the facts of gardening and how it encompasses not just them feeding the needy, but it's part of their education with their STEM program and so forth. And that's what I find really fascinating with it, from schools to libraries to community to churches. You're developing it all. This is an education for them.
Absolutely, and that's been one of the benefits of this program that was not necessarily the intention when we began.
Right.
It's been the residual benefit, whether it's the preschool groups that support us with a garden at the local kinder care, tender care, or what we're real excited about this coming growing season. We've got a unique partnership with Lincoln Elementary, Abraham Lincoln Elementary here in Bethel Park School District, and they're going to do some very hands-on gardening projects with the kids with a garden that they're growing. So we're looking real forward to that. But the idea behind all of this, and you mentioned we cover all of the age range, and it's volunteers, and it's not only the gardens that are with churches. Part of the idea early on with the church community was the idea of getting bodies out of pews, that folks could do something on their own church grounds. Schools certainly have excess capacity of some groundwork that we could come in and partner with schools, but the individual sitting at home can actually help us. Lots of folks in the community grow their own gardens, and so we've sort of had this program also where plant an extra row and donate that extra row, sort of the idea of giving back to your own local community. And if you have excess produce in your own gardens, just drop it by here at SHIM. We're here 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, and folks everywhere can participate and help support food insecurity in their own community.
Okay, so you're looking at not just your 13 big gardens, then you want the individual homeowner who grew an extra bushel of tomatoes or something to bring them up, and you'll find a home for it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's lots of times I usually get in shortly after 7 o'clock every morning, and there's something just sitting at the back door that somebody picked the night before and just dropped off. So it gives everybody the opportunity to support us.
Your benefactors or your customers that come in over the years that you've been doing this now, did they put in special requests for the garden?
What is really interesting is the folks that we're serving really do want fresh produce. So it's not that it's just any special request, but they'll welcome anything that comes in. I mean, when you look at going to the supermarket, not that we want to discourage folks from running to the local supermarkets and supporting them, but some of that food, out of season especially, can be expensive. And so by us offering it through the program that we have here, it helps with the overall monthly budgets for everybody. So our folks are thrilled to take whatever we grow, knowing that at times you'll learn something new about what do I do with a zucchini that I never thought I could do, or some leafy vegetables that I may not have normally thought of.
How many families do you support? at the food pantry?
On a given month, just here this past March, we had over 1,500 individuals throughout our 3 food pantries here at SHIM, and those represented about 600 different households throughout the South Hills.
And that stays pretty constant for you?
Unfortunately, it has.
Yeah.
When you look at those numbers, about 15% of that are senior citizens that are on fixed incomes, and then about 35% of that number of 1,500 are actually families that have kids under the age of 17. So again, back to your point, we're hitting both ends of that age spectrum on the recipient side as well as on the production side.
Have you found with this garden program you are getting people involved in SHIM that have never been involved or even knew you existed?
Absolutely. One of the, again, unintended consequences or benefits of the garden has been, especially this garden right outside here, when you drive past here and we're in full growing season, what you'll see is about 6-foot high sunflowers. I have gotten, and SHIM has gotten more great press from that garden, because when you drive past our building here in Bethel Park, it looks it blends with the neighborhood of it looks like a home. That garden has brought us so much wonderful, positive impressions from the community, PR stories, those kinds of things. But just people, when they stop by eventually, I would never have known you were here if it wasn't for the garden. And boy, do you guys grow a nice garden.
It's okay. Anything else you need to share?
No, I think that's a great start. Okay. It'll be interesting as the year goes on.
Okay, so green beans, not just in cans. Let's get the community involved and let's grow some fresh ones. Got a little bit rained out today visiting all those gardens, so we thought we'd move indoors and just take a quick look at a pallet/gutter garden that we put together here at the EV True Value Hardware. But thank you for watching BPTV Around Town. This is Andy Amrine, and stay tuned this summer for a lot of great shows we're going to be doing about the SHIM garden programs. Thank you.